With its rivers, bays, and bayous feeding its Gulf waters, and its abundance of sea life and wildlife, the Mississippi Gulf Coast is rich in natural beauty and history. No artist better captured that beauty and history than Joe Moran. Moran was born in 1915 into a fourth-generation family of boat builders and fishermen. Growing up in Biloxi, Joe's love of boats and the water began at an early age. He painted ribbons on boats in his father's shipyard as a child. But he wouldn't pursue his art until later in life. Instead, he went into the family business. Working in his father's shipyard gave Joe a detailed knowledge of the geometric shapes, linear patterns, and designs of many of the boats, which would later be incorporated into his paintings. During World War II, Joe worked at Higgins Marine in New Orleans. It was his design of the bow that was used in the development of the now famous PT boats, making the boats faster. The now common step hull design was Joe's inception, which allows crafts to flow through seas faster and smoother. After the war, Joe opened his own boat building business, Moran's Boat Works, investing everything he had in that business. By 1947, Moran's Boat Works was producing 35 boats per week and had just received an order for 500 boats when on September 19th, a powerful hurricane devastated the Gulf Coast and destroyed Joe's business. Despite losing everything, Joe rebuilt the business and while doing so, used his skill to design and build boats for racing. Joe's son Dickie Moran described his father's design skills in the documentary The Rhythm of the Water.
In order to design and build a boat, you had to be a real good artist to begin with. To be able to draw your own boat and lay it out and take a table of offsets off of it. He was very observant. I could show you on one of those models in there that if you look at the model close, the entire design of the boat is really the backside of a porpoise flipped over. Because he knew a porpoise was a fast swimming fish in the water. The race boat, way ahead of its time. He was more or less told, never mind the rules, let's build a boat that'll outrun anything. So he guessed it was running right close to 96 to 100 mile an hour.
One fateful day in 1959, Joe's life and career would change forever. He was painting a boat when it fell on him. Instead of dropping the boat, Joe strained to lift it back up. The physical strain caused severe injuries to his aorta and the displacement of his heart from its sac, and by the next morning, Joe would be paralyzed. He was confined to bed for a year. To take his mind off his physical condition, Joe's doctor asked him to draw something. Joe's first drawing was so realistic, judges at an art show thought it was a photograph. The doctor was so impressed he encouraged Joe to pursue his talent, even paying for Joe's art classes. Joe studied books on Renoir and the old masters, and in 1962 he began to study art with famed New York artist William Steen, who had moved to the coast a decade earlier. Joe became Steen's apprentice and took the opportunity to further his own talent. Perhaps Joe inherited his artistic talent from his maternal grandfather, George Orr, Biloxi's legendary Mad Potter and the father of American art pottery. However, Joe would leave his own mark on the art world. Coast art collector E.W. Blossman was so impressed with Joe's work he commissioned dozens of paintings and murals, providing steady work for Joe and allowing him to perfect his artistry. Joe incorporated the knowledge of geometric shapes and linear patterns that he gained during his time building boats into his paintings. Joe's work gained national and international acclaim. Two of his paintings were owned by presidents and hung in the White House. Senator Jim Eastland hung his portrait in the U.S. Capitol. Joe was named one of America's top 10 artists at the Paris exhibition, and the Smithsonian requested 4 of his paintings. Tragedy struck again in 1969 as Hurricane Camille ripped into Joe's home and studio. Once again, Joe lost everything, including 200 paintings. Once again, he rebuilt. While Joe continued to capture the coast's beauty on canvas, He also shared his love of art with many others. Two of Joe's children, Tommy and Mary, also became renowned artists. He developed an art curriculum for the schools and even taught classes. In addition to recording Biloxi's history and beauty in paintings, Joe was a talented photographer, taking thousands of photos around boatyards, harbors, seafood factories, and all across the Mississippi Gulf Coast. His archived slides were discovered and removed from the studio before Hurricane Katrina completely destroyed the gallery. Despite being diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1980, Joe continued to paint until he could no longer hold a brush. That was in 1993. He died in 1999. Joe's final paintings, as always, were of the boats, with this his final sunset. Even toward the end, Joe believed that his work was far from finished.